Welcome to the 301 Podcast, the interview podcast for the hottest up-and-coming entrepreneurs, artists, and creators. Real, authentic, and inspiring. And here is your host, Marcus Engel. Let's get it started in 301.
Today in the 301 Podcast, we have Erica Isotta Surace, TEDx speaker, 3-time book author, startup founder, connector, creative, and much more. I'm very excited to talk today about community building, about creativity, and so much more. And first question, you're sitting here on a Tuesday morning, hearing all those titles. Would you have expected to hear all those titles in the place and the stage of your life that you are currently?
No, not really, to be honest. I was just thinking, when you said it, I was like, oh, is it really me? And I was just going over every word. I was like, yes. I was like, wow, it's crazy. But again, it's been like 10 years in the making. So everything you mentioned has been the effort of the person I have become, through different experiences in life. Through different like personal and professional, let's say, experiences. Like I think in the end, we become what we do, So I think I read something very interesting about it, which is you are the result of the decisions you made in the last 5 years. Nice. So this is who I am today, But potentially, I think also like the 5 years before that also influence a lot.
Yeah. What are titles that are still missing there?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think I'd love to be. Oh, that's a very good question. I never thought about it, about what's missing, I think I like this. I would just like to do it more on a bigger scale. So I think I love the public speaking part. I love sharing. So I'd love to do it on like bigger stages, let's say. So now, of course, we get to do it in front of a lot of people. But imagine, for example, at a Dreamforce by Salesforce conference, this kind of stuff. So I'd say I love all those things because I think they say a lot about me. Maybe there's more stuff about me that I don't know yet also.
Yeah, I found it really impressive because I think that probably if someone would, it doesn't really seem like a bio of a 31-year-old. I think, it's more like a 3-time author and like TEDx speaker and stuff like this. So then you would more expect maybe someone who is like already in the business since 35 years or something. So that's really, really impressive. Do you think that you're still more like a dreamer or more like a realist?
Everything I do comes from the deep belief that I deserve good things in life. So I'm very optimistic by nature. If you think that I ended up like not only like writing books, but running a full-fledged publishing house before I was 30 with about like 10 people working for me and publishing 30 titles in a year. It's wild, but it's the same girl that was 8 years old sitting in my parents' bedroom on this very old, if I think now, like laptop. It was, I think, the year 2000. So it was a very, very old laptop. Writing my first story about this girl named Emma who lived in Oslo. So I already had the travel part and the living abroad and the writing. And it was already there, like there was this deep belief that I was going to achieve this. And I think I owe a lot of it to like the people who surrounded me, my family in particular, always believed in me, always said, oh, you can do it. Like every time I go to my parents and I say, oh, I'd like to start this or I'm starting this. It's not even I would like. It's like I am doing this. They're like, oh, that's great. You know what you're doing. We trust you. Like they don't fully understand, for example, what the D2 Collective is, but they really do believe that I can do it, Yeah,
I think that's the burden of many millennials. I think that like the parents don't really understand what they're doing. What I find interesting is that you basically went to, like you had this, you were young, like quite a dreamer, like all roads open. And then you went to Ireland and you basically came back to Ireland after your graduation, basically to work for LinkedIn, right?
No. So I came back from this experience abroad. I was 18, then I came back. I had still 1 year of high school to finish because in Italy we do 5 years instead of 4, like in the Netherlands. So I came back and I remember like my friends came to pick me up at the airport. They had a big party and I was like, I don't belong this anymore. I don't belong here anymore. So the whole last year of high school, I was thinking, how can I escape this? I really didn't find a way. I then enrolled into law school, which is fun. Wasn't for me. And I attended very good university in Milan. And then after university, I went to work abroad again. So then I was 23, 24. And law wasn't for me. So I said, okay, I just want to do like an internship in marketing because everybody was talking about marketing in 2014. So I just decided to do, and to go to Berlin, work for a startup, did an internship in marketing, which turned out to be sales. And I loved it. And then thanks to a person that I was studying with in university, she made me a referral for LinkedIn because they were looking for someone who spoke Italian and Spanish, which I do. So I just ended up at LinkedIn, 24 years old, totally clueless about life. I didn't know what the tech world was. Like, I had no idea. Like, what is the tech industry? I had no idea. Do you want to work for LinkedIn? Isn't that a website? Like, how do you work? What do they sell? Like, those were all questions that were valid,
Yeah.
People still come to me and say, oh, can you help me? Like, I've been locked out of my LinkedIn profile. I'm like, I'm not customer support. I was doing something completely different. And then I joined a 15,000 people company with beautiful offices. I still remember my first day at LinkedIn. It was like 26th of June, 2017. You enter like this huge building and the most beautiful corporate building you can ever imagine. Like in Italy, there's not many companies like that. So for me, I was super early in career, joined LinkedIn, and the average age, I think, was 28 when I joined. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody's young, everybody's from all over the world. Like, you have like the gym in the office, you have like lunch, you have breakfast, you have like so many perks, We could spend, I think it was €100 a month for like wellness. So if you wanted to go and, get your nails done or something, I don't remember now, get a massage, like, isn't it wild? Like, to be 24 and experience all that? For me, it was.
Yeah. Is it also bad on the other side to basically experience it? Because basically you will most likely never experience this kind of service again.
It really ruined me forever. I do believe that. So after that, no company is ever going to be good enough because LinkedIn wasn't only the perks, and because I think many tech companies have that, like the Google, the Microsoft, the Salesforce. But LinkedIn also had incredible people. The people at LinkedIn were genuinely like good people. I'm so close with so many of them, and it's really hard to believe. Like, my boyfriend's always like, oh, let me guess how you met them at LinkedIn. And I was like, yeah, we used to work together. And there's so many great people in the network. And I think they're a company that's very good at hiring good people. And I don't want to put myself in the good people basket, but every person I met there was great people.
Yeah. But I also think like the kind of stage that you create for like someone to work, right? I mean, if there's so much perks and so much like benefits, it's also very, not, I wouldn't say easy, but like it's easy also to connect because you also maybe see people more at lunch or at breakfast or at the gym or something like this, so it's more that kind of community feeling you can foster there as well. I think.
The full building is built, do you know Harry Potter? So that you have like the stairs that are moving. You basically have kind of that concept. You have like different floors connected with those stairs that go from one side to the other. And you really have that feeling that you're on the second floor, you see someone on the first, on the third. Like, you really see people all the time, even when you're going to meetings. It was one of the most social experiences I had actually working there. And really a strong feeling of community. And just in general, it was like an incredible experience. I remember, you start working there. I was maybe like, so I think the first Friday when I started, there was like this end of quarter party. And there was like unlimited drinks. And like, it's also hard to manage at that time. Like, I was a party girl. Like, this was really like not something, like it's really hard also to navigate yourself in the corporate world when there's so much access, like also to the party side of it, which I think it's going a bit down now in corporate cultures. But like 7, 8, 10 years ago was still very strong because it was how they got people together, with the ping pong table and the drinks. And then also a few months later, we had like this party and in a park, Marion Square in Dublin, and they brought like llamas and alpacas. Like, you had like animals there, and it was just a summer party. Yeah. And I was like, how unbelievable is that, And friends looking at every day, there were like cupcakes and stuff, and people were like, oh, at LinkedIn you just did cupcakes. Every day is cupcake day. And it's like, this is also true, But they take a lot of pride in taking care of the people. Yeah. That's for sure.
And I think in the end, like, you also pay it back with 12-hour working days, right?
Yeah.
So that's also the other part. What do you think like companies can learn from LinkedIn, or startups can learn from it? I mean, like laundry service is going to be difficult in a startup, except the founders doing it themselves. But like what are the things that companies can learn from those tech giants?
I think the main word is access. So giving access. You give access to leadership. So if you're a founder of a small company, give access to your employees. If someone is joining like a very early stage startup, they probably believe in the mission, they believe in the vision. They're probably not earning a lot of money because you don't have a lot to pay. That's how every startup is. But they can get a lot of learning by being exposed to your leadership and to your network and to everything you can offer. So I'd say access first. And then if you're a company that's a bit bigger and you have a bit more resources, really invest in experiences for people to connect. And I was speaking yesterday with someone about how now all the companies are focusing on, of course, like diversity, inclusion, belonging. And it's like everybody's just handed out a playbook, and this is how you need to do, but not every conversation in the playbook is going to be relevant for the team you have there. So I think everything that carries meaning and carries value for people starts from having the right conversation. So be open, ask a lot of questions to the people in your team. What would they like to do more of? I think people can be super positive when they join a new company. Give them space to actually make those things happen. Delegate them. I think delegation is probably one of the hardest things as a founder. But also, I guess, as a leader, and just for everyone, it's a bit hard. I think it's one of the most useful skills. Give people, like if someone comes in and says, I want to do X, Y, Z, let them do it, I remember I joined a scale-up. It was like 35 people. They just raised like Series A. I was there for a couple of years after Dublin. I was in Paris working with them. And I was one of the few salespeople. We didn't have a sales operation. And I was like, can I do sales operation? I'm going to do my role, but I want to do this on top because I want to earn the experience, Like, let people do those things, So I'd say, like, not everybody can be LinkedIn, but if you can create an environment where people feel valued, they feel listened to, and they feel they're getting access to learning experience, something that it's going to advance them, then this is more or less what I got there.
Yeah, and also the empowerment that you trust that people can do that, right? Like that's also... I find it quite interesting that, like, even though that you lived in this wonderful dreamland, you only left after 2 years. Why was that?
So the tech industry can be extremely, fascinating, charming. But it also can be quite addicting, Then you start looking around. We were in Dublin. So as mentioned, when I moved, I didn't know anything about the tech industry, Dublin, those companies. And then you get there and you realize there's a full world. When I accepted my LinkedIn offer, again, I didn't know what LinkedIn was doing. I didn't know what I was going to be selling. But what happened is that they just offered me double what I was earning before. So I just signed. Of course I signed. And then I got there. I met my now co-founder, Nastia, and she said, did you negotiate your salary? Why would you negotiate? They already give me double the money. So this was the situation. And then you're there and you see, like, LinkedIn is not the highest paying company. And at the time I was like, all the companies are going to be like LinkedIn. So I might as well go to the one that's paying more. Yeah. And this was the choice I made, very honestly. You get, like, earning those salaries when you're like 25, 26. It's wild. Like, I was traveling so much. I was going... In 1 year, I think I went to Thailand, Brazil, Japan, USA, just as trips, plus all the business trips I was doing for LinkedIn or for the company where I was after. And you become, like, it's a very good lifestyle, You can do so much, And your money, I mean, now those days doesn't go a long way, but it used to go a very long way, 2017, 18, 19, all those years. And I joined a company that wasn't a good fit for me culturally. And it made me realize how much I actually struggled in corporate culture. And I was a misfit again.
Interesting. Because I think that, like, if you look also, like, through your LinkedIn career page, it's a lot of times like this kind of like 1 year and 8 months, 2 years, and then you most of the time leave. Like you always had that feeling that you never really fit into corporate culture.
That's a very good observation. So for a lot of years, looking at my personal project and also like professional endeavors, I always felt, why can I not stick to be at a company for 5 years? Like, why everybody seems to be able to do it. And for me, like after a bit, I'm like, I reached my earning potential, both of them. And I just feel very stuck, you know, and I don't do well with feeling stuck. It also stems a bit from, there's two parts to it, you know. So the first one is I always feel like I'm misfit. Like in corporate culture, I didn't fit. I'm a go-getter, I'm a doer, I'm a problem solver. And sometimes in larger corporate environments, you're there just to warm a chair. So actually the company where I've been the longest was a scale-up. And it was a scale-up because I got to do like many different things and they kept me very engaged. And then there's another part, which is I really do value like the experience we do in life. Sometimes, you know, you go to the planetarium and they start to like looking at the planets and everything. And you're like, oh, we're so small. And it's again, that humbling experience of being so small that I had the first time when I went to Ireland. And life goes away so fast. Personally, I'm a cancer survivor. And I went through like a lot of like tough experiences that really made me realize I don't want to waste a moment of my life. So the moment I'm in a situation where I already have that gut feeling that this is not going to work, that long term I'm not going to get the value that I'm in for, I'm okay to quit. Yeah. And with companies, that's what happened. I was like, there's going to be something better than this. I deserve better. There's always like this underlying feeling of I deserve better. I think I saw an interview from an entrepreneur that said, great entrepreneurs, they have like 3 qualities. One is that they do believe they deserve more. They do believe they can do better than most people. They're highly insecure. So they also have this thing of like, I need to prove to others I can do it. And then they can balance the impulse control. So they can also like, they can say, okay, tonight I'm not going to get wasted because, you know, I'm building something. So they can keep that feelings at bay, you know? And I do feel, I fit the bill.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe we can dive a little bit also like in those hardship moments, because I do think it's quite significant of the person that you are today. I think it was around 2020 in this period. So where for other people started COVID, but for you it started with a miscarriage at the time.
Yeah. So it wasn't just COVID. So I just moved from Dublin, where I had this beautiful life filled with many friends and all working in tech companies. We were all traveling a lot. We had this beautiful community feeling to deciding. I made the decision to uproot my life to France. I speak French. I learned French in school. My partner was French at the time. So it felt like it was meant to happen. And that's when I was working for the scale-up. And then COVID starts. I'm isolated from my family and friends, which are the most important thing for me. Like my connection and relationship are what keeps me grounded, are what keeps me like here, because otherwise my dreaming big and like I can be very like floaty, you know, in myself. So they're actually what keeps me grounded to life. So I was separated from that. Found out I was pregnant during COVID. Couldn't tell anyone really. And I had a miscarriage, which was very hard. So the first time I actually left my house in Paris, it was actually when I had the miscarriage to go to the hospital. So it's very tough when you're going through that because, of course, it was COVID. Paris was totally locked. You couldn't leave the house unless you had like a written certification. It was another like French bureaucracy thing. And then when I went there, of course, like that happened. I did all the checks and I also found something was wrong in my cervix. So we started doing all the tests. And over the course of 6 months, then it came out I had to get surgery for cancer removal. And when I was 27 at the time, and you're just thinking, how is this happening to me right now? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Because I don't know, for some reason, everything goes back to that deserving, you know, I deserve more. I don't, you know, like, what did I do, you know? Like, I'm like, why is my life going to be over? Like in 6 months, in 3 months? And it gave me a lot of perception on, is my life really going to be over, you know? And if my life is over tomorrow, what do I want to have achieved? And something I always said in all the interviews, like, I want to have impact. And so this situation was really a driver for starting my first company, which is WomenPlot. And WomenPlot is a publishing house for amplifying women voices in literature. If you go to any bookshop, you would see that most of the names are from men. So 70% of the titles are actually men, while there are actually more women reading, more women writing. there's just not enough space in literature. So I started doing that. And in the year 2021, we published 30 titles. I had a team of 10 people. We grow like a community on Instagram to like 8,000 followers. I had an incredible team that I'm so grateful for. And we ran the first reading retreats in Italy ever that were done. And these actually made me understand a lot about community and potential, and just a lot. Like in 2021, I was in the wake of all the hardship I went through. And I was like, I can step into this new person because of the hardship I went through. And I did a TED talk on those topics. So it actually, all the bad things, they resulted in something bigger.
Like, I think if I would read out your medical history and your personal history in 2 years, from miscarriage to cancer diagnosis to a divorce, I don't think anyone would expect the other side of the medal to have like a publishing house. You also wrote a book, one out of four, one in four, about miscarriages. So, like, this is the other side of the medal. Like, where does this drive come from, or like what is like this inner drive that you have, that you say like, I'm a go-getter and all this kind of stuff, but like in such a tough situation, to turn this around, I find this very impressive.
I have the belief that it cannot be just that, and this is like so rooted and so deep. Like, it cannot be that I'm feeling all this pain and it's worth nothing. So from my divorce also and the separation, also there was like a podcast that came out, which is Embracing Life. And it's my biggest podcast. It's only in Italian. There's few episodes in English. And on Embracing Life, I think one of the episodes was like, sometimes we really feel that out of a bad thing, a hardship, we need to make it like the mission of our life. And I really did believe that. And it's not going to be that for everyone. For some people, it's just going to be a hardship and you just want to leave it behind. But I'm the kind of person that wants to make the hardship into a lesson for me and for others. So speaking up, for example, about miscarriage gave me a lot of confidence in my voice, because speaking about this stuff is not hard when you have to tell your family. Like, I need to call my mom and say, I was pregnant, I'm not anymore. While I was going through all the hormones, there's just so much going on. And I remember that when I started telling the story openly, I still feel it, I still feel it. It's my story. But then it becomes also other people's story. The weight becomes less for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there's also like maybe like a very selfish part of it. And so many people were helped by this. So many people reach out. So many people are still reading the books. Books have an incredible power. They outlive you, I'm an avid reader. Like, for me, like, books have been always play such an important role. So I do believe that there is so much more that comes out of it that can be positive. And I'm always looking at the balance sheet, and I want more positive than negative in life. In general, I want to look back and say, yeah, I did X, Y, Z. I went through hardship, but they didn't define me, I don't want to be defined by things that happened to me.
What I find really interesting from like an outside perspective, like, it almost seems that like, even if things are unsolvable for you, like, you try just to like fix it, right? So like, for example, like a sickness or like a miscarriage or something, like, it's nothing that you can really change. Like, of course you can have surgery or blah, 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 but like, there's nothing that, like, there's a problem, I cannot solve it. But if you cannot solve it, like, you just jump to the next, like, okay, but what can I solve? Okay, I cannot solve this, but then I write a book. And I find this is like such an interesting quality that I think not a lot of people have, that they really have this talent to turn every situation basically into something beautiful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm a fixer, so that's for sure. So I think it comes from ownership. So I really do feel I own not only my problems, but also the one from others, which for people in my life might not be the best, because I always jump in, okay, what can we do about it? How can I help you? Like, what can I do? Whenever I speak with someone, I think like, how can I work with this person? What can I do? Can I provide any value from my network? I'm always connecting the dots, And this also goes then for the connector community. I think community as being a pivotal part of my life. Also coming from Italy, like, there is a big part that community plays there. And I just didn't realize until recently how important it was in everything I did, basically.
And is there any tips or anything that you can give other people like how to get through tough times? Because is there anything transferable, or is it just like, oh, this is just me, like I cannot like really share it because it's just the way I am?
Yeah. So personally, what I did is that I was an incredibly avoidant person. So I would just not look at those and just push through, like with everything, That's why I ended up having a burnout twice. Like I was just pushing through. So I'd say in general, speak up with anything when you can. The moment you speak up with someone, you can split the pain. Like you're also like sharing the pain with other people. And then it becomes a bit lighter to carry. This doesn't mean go and dump your problems on other people. I think you always should be respectful. But given the right audience, I think you should be able to, with the people in your life, the relationships that keep you grounded, you should be able to open up.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. What I hear a lot, or probably you as well, is this kind of like everyone is always screaming like, oh, someone should do something about that.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times you are the person who is then doing something about that. And I think also with your latest venture with the D2 Collective, I think a lot of people always scream like, oh, community is like the thing, the new thing, like you should build a community, right? And I think everyone wants to do this, and you did it. And you did not found it alone. You said already before, now your business partner Nastia, you did it together. And I think you met at LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Worked later together at Hopin,
Yeah.
where you both got laid off.
Yeah.
And then from this time of the restructuring and the layoff, kind of like D2 Collective was born. Can you take us along in this journey? Because I find this so interesting. Like, again, how do you go from this, oh, something is ending, but hey, let's make it a good time at least.
Yeah. So Nastia it's a great question. I love this story, to be honest. I think my eyes are shining. I love talking about this. So Nastia was a colleague. Nastia was nothing more than a colleague. She was going to join my team. 2 months after I started LinkedIn, I sent her a message on Facebook. Hey, welcome to the team. I'm so happy to have you there. And she said, oh, already from that first connection, it was so positive, someone reaching out to you to welcome you in the team. And we became very good friends. We were all in the same role, just for different markets. I was working Iberia and Italy, and she was working the Benelux. We were in sales development, so the very early talent in the business that's supporting like the sales teams to close more business in the end. We became very good friends. We started traveling together. We were traveling we traveled everywhere in Europe. We went to New York. We went to Cape Town, Brazil. We did so many things together, and we became best friends. And whenever I look back at LinkedIn, if I took out Nastia of the equation, it would not be the same. So for me, this is always this is one of the best things I got out of it. It's such a deep relationship that we have with each other. And I was coming from an experience of doing, as a solo founder, as a solo entrepreneur. And I thought that this was going to be it for me. I'm a person who works very well alone. I focus a lot. I always believe I can do it myself. So it was very humbling actually to do it with someone that I care so much for and that I have a huge admiration for, which is Nastia. We're very complementary in the skills that we have. So we started working at LinkedIn. And of course, we moved on. I moved to France. And at some point, it's beginning of 2022, we joined the same company, Hopin. She was interviewing, then she told me, oh, I just got an offer. So I was like, well, I'm also going to interview because I want a fully remote role. And we were both in Amsterdam. Actually, we started the onboarding the same week. It was the same role, account executive, enterprise for different markets. And we were working, doing the onboarding from my apartment in Amsterdam. And a few months later, we're working for this fully remote company, and we're really loving the flexibility. We were working from South Africa, from Cape Town, for a couple of weeks. And we realized we missed the connection. We missed the community. We missed, in Dublin, going out to Searsons, which is a pub, and meeting everybody who works in tech because all the offices are close by. In D2, the zip code. So you have Google, Meta, LinkedIn, and so on. And we were like, oh, we'd love to do something. Shall we do something together? And we start putting the idea of putting kind of the ground foundation ideas for something completely different from D2, but that was also rooted in community. We work a bit on that, a few hours here and there for a couple of months, but it was an idea that was it was going to be capital intense. We didn't have any 400K spare to invest there. And so we just keep working on it, on the idea. We just keep meeting up for this, apart from just being friends. Mid-July 2022, we get laid off. It's a very tough moment. If anyone has ever experienced layoff, you can really understand well the feeling of being not enough, being cut out, being just a number. And I went through that and I felt all the emotions at that point because, again, I had tied my worth so much to that corporate environment telling me, oh, you're good because you have this job title, you earn this much money, you work for these companies. I think even now, like whenever, like I just mentioned, oh, I used to work at LinkedIn, and it just elevates your status a bit, you know? And you know that it does this effect on people and you just use it. So you build your identity around that. Well, I'm so much more than just someone who worked at LinkedIn. LinkedIn has now like 20,000 people plus more have passed through. Like, it's not that special, you know? But there is like this thing, like this elite thing that everybody feels. Like when someone said they work at Google or something. So when at some point someone tells you your identity is not tied to it anymore because you're not enough, you've been laid off, that is so hard to cope with. So I remember we were having like walks in Vondelpark and just cry with each other, like, what is our professional life now? And now if anybody came to me and said, I'm going for a layoff, I'm like, you're so much better off it, you know?
Yeah.
I have a different perspective, of course. Time gives you that. And then we're like, can we start something? Like, what can we do, you know? What do we want to do with our professional life? And we kept going back to Dublin, like, oh, that was great, the people in tech and so on. Why don't we start a community? What can we start today with no money in the bank, no company set up or anything? We can organize meetups for people working in tech. And that's how the two started in October 2022.
Insane. And can you take us back to like this moment where it was like, because I think that you see this probably as well so many times of people saying like, I'm going to start this, I'm gonna next month, next year, and never is the right moment. But like, was there like this kind of like defying moment where you said like, okay, let's just do it. Okay, let's just throw all the doubts overboard and let's just do it. Like, what kind of conversation was that?
So I think we were dancing a lot around the topic, you know, because we started with the other idea and we were dancing around it. And at some point, this was midsummer. It was mid-August, I think, 2022. And I remember we met up and I said, do we want to do it? You know, if we want to do it, we need to put time in the agenda every week that we work on it. Even if we advance like one step, I think a lot of people struggle, say, oh, I want to start something. I have so many people say, oh, I want to start a company. Okay, what? Yeah, I don't know, but what's your passion? Like, so really understanding like more or less what you want to do. Something you learn with entrepreneurship and startup is that there's a lot of like product pivots and company pivots. So that first idea of the two is very different from what we're doing today. So you just need to start. Done is better than perfect. I'll never say it enough. And my suggestion that I give to people who say that they want to start something is make a list of all the tasks you can think of. Maybe it's like, oh, create a website, create my values, create the business model. And then every task you complete is going to create some new one. But try to make a list of like 100 tasks or 10 or 50, you know, and start checking them off. And look, this is progress. Every time you check something off that list, that is progress. So I do believe that there's like, for us, there was like a defining conversation in August, but it was just more than that. It was like, okay, we need to do it. We need to believe in ourselves. And I think we were going through different challenges at the time. For me, was really the transition from corporate, where I was a misfit, to really stepping into the person I am as an entrepreneur, which I think fits me kind of like a glove. And for Nastia, for example, was putting herself out there because she had never done it before. Well, for me, like with the books, I had a blog, I had a podcast. I was very used to telling my story, like, and I wasn't really caring about the judgment other people have. And I think when you stop caring, then you can really grow.
Yeah. And how was the very first event then, like that first meetup? What did you do?
It's very cringe to think about it now, but it was just drinks at Café Panache in West. And it was just friends and friends of friends. It was 30 people maybe. And I remember we were messaging every single person, hey, how are you going to be there? Like, we really wanted to make sure we had enough people. And now our events are filling out by themselves, you know?
Yeah. I think it's now over like 3,000 people in the community, right?
Yeah, 3,500. So it's incredible. Just that, it is very wild.
Yeah. And I've been to one of the events. I think that's also where I saw you speak for the first time. I think community building is such a fragile thing to do. If you think about like there's can be like one person in a community that can completely ruin like a whole event, like a whole evening, like, you know, and I think to kind of carefully select the members like is very difficult. And also like how much do you open up a community to let new people in, and how much do you gatekeep the community to kind of say, oh, now we have a nice group of people. So without telling, of course, too much secrets and too much secret sauce,
but like, tell all the secrets.
What are the maybe like the ingredients, or what are the elements to build a community? Because I think probably it's transferable as well to building great teams and things like this as well.
There's a disclaimer to be made. I think you touched on something important. We cannot control all the people who are there. Someone can also be in a bad mood and just be an unpleasant person on that evening and still decide to get out. So, but you still want to foster an environment where the vibe is right. So this is something also from LinkedIn, you know. LinkedIn, not every person was a great person, but at LinkedIn, because the standards were held so high, people behaved very well. People were actually, you know, keeping themselves to the highest standard they could. So we said, if we put a community that's based on values, and those values being you believe in genuine connection, you believe in belonging, you want to, you know, you're not afraid to think outside the box and dream big, you're passionate about something. Like, it doesn't matter what you're passionate about, but you're a passionate person, you care about something, you're curious to ask others questions about themselves and to share your knowledge, that's a place for you. So if we put like those standards very high and we say, look, people come to make meaningful conversation. Nobody's coming here to sell. Nobody's coming here to product pitch. Nobody's coming here just to hire. A conversation could lead to that, but it's not the first conversation. Then we're setting up the standards in a way that potentially like this can happen, because we cannot control the people in the room. I think it's really hard also like to say who's in and who's not. Like, it's so many people now. I haven't spoken with those 3,500 members. Sometimes someone is referring others. So our community works on referral a lot. But referral, if you don't have a diverse community to begin with, can also lead to lack of diversity. If we have like 3 types of people that they only refer people in their network who look and think like them, it's also like in diversity of thought, you know, like you risk to get not much diversity. So it's always important. So for us, we combine, of course, the referrals. We also outreach to people in the community, and you'll never know. I also think that for the environment we set up, we attract certain kind of people, but we also attract others. So it has happened that sometimes some people, their vibe was off. And then we cannot really do much about it, you know. You cannot like kick someone out. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, you know. So it's more we can put the effort on the positive. How do we foster the positive behavior? How do we reinforce the positive behavior? So we identified some connection advocates who are people who, kind of really represent our values, and they're like culture ambassadors for us. And they lead the events. They share the events on their LinkedIn, so they attract more of the same in a certain way. They're all diverse between them. And I think finding those cultural ambassadors also within the company, I think it could be like a great way. It's also like when you work with freelancers or when you work with like clients, like you want to have, like sometimes you feel that with a client is not going to be a great fit. So we all need the money coming from the corporate clients, but maybe like it's worth giving it a bit more thought, because it's going to be more hustle than profit. Yeah.
When was the first time that you really kind of celebrated an achievement with T2?
I think like reaching 1,000 members was a big one. And it was last year, May, and it was really exciting. And then I think when we signed our first corporate client, so I think one of the biggest challenges we went through with the business was, how are we going to monetize? We started a community, and again, we said, oh yeah, we're going to do memberships. To be honest, if you're selling, like now it's 200 euro, it was like 100 before. You need a lot of 100 euro membership just to be able to pay your salary when you pay tax on top of it, you know, like, so it was also like a realization, we're not going to make a lot of money from membership in the first couple of years. I think there's going to be a tipping point where we get like so much transactions and so many people that the community is going to grow. It's compound growth in the end, you know, so that we're going to make money also. It's going to be a side revenue, the membership, but we're not going to make enough money to pay ourselves a salary. And that can be also like tough from an entrepreneurial perspective. So it's like, what are we going to sell? What are we going to sell to companies? Like, we knew that companies had the money, but what do we give them, you know? What do they need that they can outsource to us or that we can do for them? And we went through everything. We thought we were going to do consultancy. We were going to develop a framework for meaningful connections in the workplace. And again, probably we will do stuff like this, you know? Probably we will have a business that will have like 7, 8 business units, you know? Not today, of course, because we're only 2 people. But we do see the vision for that. And then I think when we realized that we found a product market fit of something we could sell, that was really powerful. Because there's no blueprint for the D2 Collective. You know, it's not just a members community. It's not an event marketing agency. It's not it's really hard to follow the steps because there's no steps to be followed. So every day we're shaping it, which I find super exciting. But it's also like we don't know where we're going, you know? Because there's no, like we have a North Star, but it's not like, oh, you have a coaching business, you can start with one-on-one coaching and then you do group coaching. Like there's no blueprint for like being an influencer or being a coach or like, you know, even building and scaling a podcast, you have a blueprint for that. Like now everyone, if they use Google well enough, they can learn by themselves and set something up from themselves. There's no way to how to build and scale a community for people in tech. First, because there's no community like D2. There's no one else who's doing exactly what we do. Some communities, they work on events and learning and they sell courses, for example. Some others, they are more from the talent perspective. They have companies find the talent within their community. We might do both of them, you know? So there's a lot that can be done and it needs to be relevant for the people in the community.
Yeah. I think super, interesting. And I think also I'm super curious, like where it will lead in the next couple of years. I think you're like on a really, really good track. One of the things that I'm also interested in is that you are the second-time founder now.
Yeah.
What can other founders learn from you and like learn maybe from like this founding experience? Maybe in this initial phase, maybe to get started. I think you already said like the list of 100 things.
To do.
Are there any other things that you can say, like let's make this very practical of like what does it take to be a founder? Maybe that's a more interesting question.
Done is better than perfect. Don't be attached to the outcome. Like think about the input, like what can you control? Like it's really hard to say, oh, I want to run like a 100 people event. What do you need to do to make that, like what can you control in that, you know? Like there's so many things, like this is also connected to the hardship, like so many things we cannot control in our life, but there are so many things we can control and have ownership over. So what can you control? Like I can control that to have 100 people in the room, I need to send like 1,000 messages maybe, 1,000 invites to people in my network, to emails, to whatever, you know? So what can you control and how can that drive an outcome? I think this is a big part of being a doer. I think like being a founder, there's different parts. So you have kind of the self-motivation, discipline one, and these you cannot really learn. So you need to teach yourself. So you need either to believe in the vision so much that you're so driven that, the days are not heavy. Like for me, it's really hard. Like when people ask me, how do you do to stay motivated? I'm like, I'm always motivated. I don't have to stay motivated. And it sounds like not humble and arrogant. And I'm very sorry. Maybe the Dutch is rambling on me, but you know, like I am really motivated all the time. Like I can start opening up my computer in the morning and work until like 7 p.m. And sometimes I have easily day of 12 hours. And it's not to glamorize overworking because I don't, but like I need to tell myself to stop because there's always something to do and I'm always focused on progressing the company. So you have that piece. Of course, you have the piece of the input. So if you put the input, there's going to be an output. If you do something for long enough, there's going to be an outcome coming out of it. If you train every day and run 1 kilometer every day, you're going to be a very good runner after 1 year. So this is kind of the same. You need to put that consistency in. You cannot get results without consistency. Like I think we were talking a bit about it, like we see on LinkedIn or on Instagram, wherever, like people, those overnight success, there's no overnight success. All those people work probably very long and then they had a big break, you know, but there was probably something before. Yeah. People see now D2 Collective and they say, oh, this is your big break. You did so fast, 1.5 years. But the reason why I and Nastia, we can do all of this today is because of every experience we had before. And how that actually taught us how to do it fast today and how to scale and how to have the network and how to leverage the resources and so on. And then the third point, so I think third and fourth point on this, how to be a founder, would be choose your co-founder wisely. I think that's very important. Choose someone you can have difficult conversations with without being attached to, like I'm feeling hurt. Like, know that it's just about the business. Like for us, it's very clear, like it is for the best interest of the business and we're both committed to it. And the fact that we are best friends, we just know that we're always going to be friends. So nothing is going to ruin it, And that safety of the relationship that, we really do believe also we can do it. So you need to be with a founder. You need to be in bed with a founder you're really secure of the relationship. Otherwise, you cannot make it. Otherwise, do it alone. I think it's going to be better to do it alone. Leverage like a lot of like freelancers, interns, additional helps, whatever, virtual assistants, anything you want to leverage, do it alone then because it's going to be better. I was speaking with some founders in New York and they were 3 and now they're 2. They're kicking someone out and it's very complicated, even when your company is like 5 months old. So imagine when it's maybe like 1, 2, 3 years, 7. Yeah. And the last part is the financial point. So I think entrepreneurs sometimes underestimate the financial impact of being an entrepreneur. So think it well, make a plan for your money. You could have some months where you're not earning any money. So don't get too high on the high of like signing a client and really plan well for that.
Yeah, because I think also from the outside, it always looks easy, right? Then you know that, someone is working as a freelancer and earns 120 euro per hour. And you think, well, if I just do this then 3 days, then I can make 15K a month and have then 2 days. But then if you are in a situation you will not find this kind of gig. So it's also as you said, I think the financial part and I think the time part as well. It basically took you 10 years to found D2 Collective in the end, and put basically all the experience basically now in this venture. I slowly want to wrap up the conversation. I think it's a super interesting conversation. One thing that I'm still very interested in is everywhere I look, I can basically find, and you said yourself, I'm a go-getter. I don't do things halfway. Does that also sometimes hinder you in a way as well, that you do it maybe too fast and go too fast into action mode and maybe not think enough?
Yeah, this for sure. So many situations, just even answering, sometimes you want to take a bit of time. A very simple example, but then it's also applicable to larger ones. A client said something and I was just answering very fast and I was like, I could have said something different. But I wanted to be fast in answering. I wanted to be I also don't believe in leaving something out for too long. It's not going to take me 3 days to answer an email. If I do it now, it's not going to be a list or a to-do kind of task back on the back of my head. So there is a trade-off in acting fast. And the trade-off could be you don't get to experience or enjoy things as much. You get very deep into the operational stuff that you should be able to delegate. This particularly, of course, to the entrepreneurial experience. And yeah, I think in general, sometimes, again, as I mentioned before, I thought of myself as a quitter because I was just moving on to the next thing and I was quitting. I really do see myself as a quitter sometimes, that I couldn't, stay long enough. What if I actually committed to my travel blog in 2015? And where would it be now after 9 years, Maybe I would have 1 million followers on Instagram and just travel the world, But I'm very happy about my journey. So I do believe that we end up where we end up because it's meant to be. But yeah, sometimes I'm it's there is a price you pay for everything you do. So for sure there was a price for me.
With everything that I think I've researched prior to this conversation and also the conversation that we're having right now, it really seems that you found now you're building your dream job. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I do believe that now I'm where I was supposed to be. So I'm also feeling I started I used to feel so bad for those situations indeed where I felt like I was quitting or I was moving too fast or I was just trusting my gut maybe too much. And again, I explained a bit where it comes from, that I really believe we have one life and I don't want to waste time. Like wasting time for me, it's like one of the most, like time is the most precious thing we have because it's limited. It's running over literally right now. So there is a part of also understanding and accepting that everything that's been, it's okay that it, at the beginning and at an end. Everything has a beginning and an end. Also like the two, even if it's going to be like longer, like 40 years company, there's going to be a startup phase that's going to end at some point. There's going to be a scale-up phase that's going to begin. So really accepting the endings as new beginnings, I think it's an important kind of reframing I did of most situation. And now I really feel I'm in the right spot at the right time. I'm doing all the things. Like there's no activity that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm not motivated. I'm not getting any anxiety as I was getting when I was working. I'm motivated like 100% of the time. I really do believe, and I do things that I really like. Everything I do, I truly like. Like I love speaking with leaders. I love interviewing leaders. I love working with Nastia on these. I love like getting to know people, hearing their stories. I love thinking about how can we make money in a new way? What can we sell? And do everything from the planning to the go-to-market, because this is what you do when you're an entrepreneur. So I really do feel it fits like all the different parts of my personality.
Very nice conversation. I think we slowly wrap it up. I have 3 final questions that I ask to every guest, but I think it was an exceptional conversation. I think it was one of the hardest interview scripts I think I had to write, because it was really difficult to grasp you as a person. So I think from outside you really seem like this kind of like overachiever and just like flying high and everything. But the moment you like do a little bit of research about you figure out, wow, there are so many more layers. Like there's like this author that is sleeping in you that wants to write everything down and tell beautiful stories. There's this content creator, there's this founder there. So there's this woman in tech pusher. There's like, there's so many layers that you have. And I think it was very difficult to kind of shape it to, okay, what do I want to talk with you today about, And I think that was very beautiful. What was one of the first times that I had this. So I think it's a big, big compliment that you have many, many layers. And I think it was a very interesting conversation about, many different aspects of life, personal, private, but also I think the business aspect. So thank you for your openness. I think we really, really enjoyed it. And before we leave off, I always have 3 final questions. The first question is, what are you learning right now that you are not good at?
That's a very good question. I'm learning to do something I never did before, which is we're running events for companies, and we did a lot of events for ourselves, so we know how to do it. But then talking with companies, the conversation is very different. So something I'm specifically learning is how do you price yourself when you have nothing you can actually stand up against. So sometimes you need to have conversations with companies where you need to show that you know what you're doing, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, amazing. How would you call this chapter of your life?
That's a very good question. The building or the builder. Erica the builder, with my little building hat and building.
Nice. And the last question is, if you could send a SMS to all mobile phones in the world, what would you say?
Oh, that's a very good one. I would say, don't be afraid to have tough conversations. Those are the ones that actually make the world go round and make you grow.
Awesome. Erica, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you so much for listening again to the 301 podcast. We are back in 2 weeks with another episode. Don't forget to subscribe. I know that 80% of the people that watch right now are not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, comment on it. It really helps with the engagement. And we are back with a new episode in 2 weeks on the 301 podcast.